most substantial bridges from days gone by in the forest area. This is the River Road Bridge. It was built for the logging industry back in the 1930s. It runs 155 metres. A lot of the bridges we cross are quite minuscule. At the moment though, it's a lovely bridge, but there's not much happening down below in regard to river or water activity. A rather expansive part of the Warren River. We're not too far away from leaving it, and our first and highest climb of the day. We've had a couple of little pimples to go over, but this next climb we're going up about 110, 115 metres, and then 3 others before that on our way into Schaefer. As you've seen at the start of the day, we've had our pack covers on, but it is just starting to get a little bit more than occasional drizzle, so it's time to put the ponchos on. Now, Jude's an expert in this. Look at that. Their little head will poke out eventually. There we go. And as is often the case on this walk, Jude, we put the poncho on, take 25 steps, and it stops raining. Because it can get extra humid. Now, I have to say, Jude, if it does surprise me that the poncho has not caught on at the Milan Fashion Show, it's a magnificent looking item. You wear it so well.
I love it. I don't give a monkey's what anyone else thinks. I get hot. Poncho keep me dry without getting me hot.
Very good. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So, if you're in the fashion industry and you're listening, we expect to see it on the catwalks of Milan or Singapore, Paris. Watch this space. I can only imagine that someone has put this here as a joke. I mean, it's a legitimate sign for a temporary bus stop, and it's even got the Transperth logo at the top. But somehow, I get the impression that this isn't really where a bus stops in a temporary fashion, a permanent fashion, or in fact, ever. home stretch now, only about 250 odd metres away from tonight's accommodation. Schaefer it's called, and it's named after a gentleman called Jeff Schaefer, who was the man who actually initially had the concept for a long trail through the southwest of Western Australia. In the early 1970s that was, and now of course after several iterations we have the 1,000 plus kilometre Bibbulmun Track. So hats off to Jeff Schaefer. Look forward to spending the night at his aptly named campsite. Primarily, Jude, you've been in charge of booking accommodation for this trip. 300 metres up a very slight hill. Showers and warm beds.
Beds and warm showers.
Right. Okay.
This has got a bed.
We have.
And it's got a swimming hole.
And yeah, and here's might be the overflow from it.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Oh, here you go. Oh, okay, tenants. Afternoon.
Great to see you.
Great to be here. No disrespect to anyone else, Greg, but I'm glad at this stage it's just you and Vicky. We made it.
Great.
Greg is bird hunting with his camera. Wild Jude, aka Mad Jude, is wondering whether she should have a swim in here. This is actually a dam for a rural property, but it's actually been cordoned off with some buoys out there and some rope, and this area is allowed to be used by hikers. Judith, your opinion?
I just need to touch the water and see how cold it is.
Have you done that yet?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's not that cold.
So you're going to go in?
Maybe.
Oh my God. The things people do when they're hiking. Fairly cruisy day today, really. Just over 22k, 600 metres climb, so a little bit more than yesterday. But I must say, after a very good night's sleep last night, I actually felt a lot better. Wouldn't say I glided into the Schaefer hut, but certainly was a lot better than last night. 14k's tomorrow, very, very short into Northcliffe, which is handy. We're only staying one night, so we need to resupply, shower, have a meal, sleep in a comfortable bed, and then we start the 7 days to Walpole, which will be a challenging one. Again, you start with a full load of a week's worth of food. But today was a terrific day through the forests again. Didn't see again any animal activity. Can't believe how few kangaroos we've actually seen on this trip. Only a handful, if that, and not many of them close up, unfortunately, but maybe that'll change. I know that down south, right down towards the bottom, a lot of people do see them in bigger bunches. We've only seen them either in ones or twos, and one very small glimpse at a group of 4, at least Jude saw 4, I only saw 2 of them. But no, terrific day coming into Schaefer. Short little stint this one from Pemberton, just the 1 day yesterday to Warren, today to Schaefer, tomorrow into Northcliffe, and then some of the tougher territory starts when we start to get into the swamp land down between Northcliffe and Walpole. I was going to say looking forward to it. Perhaps not really, but a nice night ahead here. A beautiful view behind us, as we mentioned, the dam made available by a local farmer to whoever comes through here on the Bibbulmun Track. Jude's already been silly enough to use it. No one else has, and I don't think they will. Well, good morning and welcome to Schaefer once again. There's a beautiful mist over the lake, which we'll show you in a moment. But it's on about 6:15 in the morning. We're all up, getting ready to pack, having our breakfast and coffee. It's a very short walk today, and it's a good thing that it is, because we're heading into Northcliffe, where we'll get a resupply. We'll also be able to have a shower and one night in a hotel room, and that's the important thing. We've only got one night, so being a 14-kilometre walk this morning, we can get in there well before midday, which gives us an opportunity in particular to do all our washing, go to the local IGA, pick up a few extra things on top of what we've got in our resupply box, because it's going to be a big next stage. We've got to walk for 7 days down to Walpole, so the bags will be a little bit heavier when we put them on our backs. But this is an idyllic start to the day. It's beautiful with the mist over the lake just here, and it's going to be nice to have the pack back on our back. The lightest it will be, of course, the last day before you go in for a resupply. Thankfully, a very short day, hardly any hills, so we'll get there very quickly. But for now, let's go and finish the coffee. Walking alongside a blue gum plantation pretty much to start the morning out of Schaefer. That's some fallen tree, Judith.
It certainly is.
Incredible. As you walk the Bibbulmun, and indeed the southwest of Western Australia, you can certainly understand why this part of the world is officially listed amongst, I think it's about a dozen special biodiversity areas in the world, just in regard to the plethora of different types of plants. And already this morning, having left Schaefer, we've seen a flower or a plant that we haven't seen anywhere before. And it happens quite often that plants and flowers are present for a few days, maybe a few 100 kilometres, and all of a sudden the foliage changes, the colours of the flowers, the shape of the flowers, obviously the flowers themselves are completely different. And again this morning we've seen an example of that, having left Schaefer and virtually crossed the gravel road at one stage, and we started to see a flower we'd never seen before, which is quite, I guess, a statement in regard to the variety of plant life down around the southwest of Western Australia. There's Vicky being intrepid. Previous walkers have carved a path through the side, and this is a precursor potentially to Kingarup Plains down south of Northcliffe. Fun coming up. only around 500 metres from the little town of Northcliffe. It's an interesting history. The housing resettlement scheme just after the First World War, and as a result of that rehousing scheme, Northcliffe was effectively founded. It's the only town in Western Australia to have had its birth as a result of that particular scheme. 5 years after the war, 1923, this area was surveyed, and then after that, after it became populated, was largely filled, the town, by timber workers. This was very much in the heart of the southwest of WA's timber industry. But in recent times, as we know, there's been changes to that particular employment through various pieces of government legislation. So nowadays it's more of a tourist destination. As we saw a moment ago, there's a mountain bike trail around here, and a lot of the land that was under tree is now under the feet of cows. There are also walnuts, olive plantations down here, but it is a little town that holds a unique part of the WA history, having been founded as it was back in the early 1920s. Where the heck is Northcliffe? Well, there it is, a little dot in the southwest of Western Australia. We've reached the main street. Mind you, there aren't too many other streets. So we're about to go and order a couple of coffees, and after I've done that, I'm going to wander across the road to the tourist centre and get our resupply box. How is the resupply going, Judith?
Yes, good. I'm just getting organised. I like to be organised. And until I'm organised, I can't relax.
Okay, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is the box of stuff we're sending home, because we've had meals in other places. I've supplied myself with too much sunscreen. We've actually bought too much soup. That was me that did that. So yes, this is the rigmarole you have to go through every time you get to a town where you have the resupply. And when we leave tomorrow morning, the bags are going to be reasonably heavy, because here's the main food. We've got 7 days worth of food in there, so it's going to be a little bit heavier than the last few stops. We've only had 3 or 4 days between towns, but we've done it before in the segment to Dwelling Up, where we virtually had 2 lots of 7s, so we will be able to cope. That's where we've come from, and this is now where we're heading, down to Albany. So we're just leaving Northcliffe now, heading down this old railway line.
Disadvantages of short legs.
Okay, my turn now. I'll catch up shortly. Just passed a lady who's going in the other direction and said that Greg and Vicky in front of us have seen 3 snakes in the space of 500 metres. We have not seen any. Only about 400 metres away from the Gardner hut now, which the original wooden structure was actually totally destroyed back in 2015. There was a massive fire that came through this particular area, destroyed the hut and destroyed 98,000 hectares of land. Burnt it, singed it, scorched it. It was one of the biggest bushfires in the southwest of Western Australia for quite some time. In fact, at the height of it, there were fire crews called in from Victoria and New South Wales to actually help fight it. Such was the devastation of what it caused throughout the national park and general forest areas. It really was devastating. Today, in fact even now, we're passing through a lot of the regrowth area, which is quite dense over time. That will actually thin out, but it's quite incredible to consider that back in 2015, when that fire was actually coming through, the perimeter of it was something like 300 kilometres. And you can imagine the damage that that would have wrought, not just on trees, plants, flowers, but also, of course, wildlife as well. So the hut we're rapidly heading to at Gardner is one of the new kind, made out of rammed earth. So in future it may lose its roof in a fire, but the structure itself will continue to stand. But yes, we've been in the last good few kilometres walking through an area of regrowth. You're talking about a fire only 7 years ago. A lot of the population was actually evacuated from Windy Harbour, Northcliffe, up towards Pemberton, as the authorities were trying to douse the massive flames. So it will be one of the modern huts when we get to Gardner, named of course after the river that we've been pretty much running parallel to throughout the day. Just standing on the banks here of the Gardner River. It's not very wide where we are. Perhaps you can hear it burbling and bubbling in the background. Just about 40 metres away from the Gardner hut. Pretty easy day today. I must admit, the 2 days either side of Northcliffe, there wasn't a lot of energy having to be expended. Just 16 kilometres today, but it was a very varied and beautiful landscape. There are a lot of wildflowers, some of them just coming into bloom, some at their best, some going the other way. But the Gardner campsite, there's only the 4 of us here at the moment. We'll wait and see what happens down the track tonight. But Gardner, named after the river, as I said, virtually all day today we've been tracking along it, and hence the fact that we haven't had a lot of climbing today, only about 160, 170 metres in elevation. So it made for a pretty easy day. Tomorrow though, we're starting to prepare ourselves for a bit of a slog through some of the marshes. We're hearing varied reports as to what it's like at the moment. We'll find out firsthand tomorrow. The time shortly for dinner here at Gardner.